We are already around 2.5 weeks into the NHL regular season, which is insane. It feels like October has just flown by. Every team in the league has played a minimum of 5 games, with some teams having played 7. It's still very early, but I've been dying to make the first one from every team video of the season. These are some of my favorite videos to make every year, so we're going to start simple this season. I'm just going to go through all 32 NHL teams and give you guys my first impressions on each team so far this season. If this is your first time checking out the channel and you want NHL content just like this all year round, hit that subscribe button. We're getting super close to 75,000. With that all being said, let's go ahead and start things off like we usually do in these videos with the Anaheim Ducks. And my first impressions on the Ducks so far this season are pretty much they are what I expected them to be. They have a record of 2-4 through 6 games. They're 6th place in the Pacific Division. The offense just isn't there for Anaheim. They're ranked 27th in the NHL in both goals for per game and shots per game. It's another rebuilding year for Anaheim. They're likely going to finish 7th or 8th in the Pacific. Luckily for Ducks fans, Leo Carlsson has looked solid in the 2 games he's gotten into, so being able to watch him and the hope for the future should be enough to get Ducks fans through the season. The Arizona Coyotes, first impressions are pretty solid. They're 3-3 through 6 games. I made a bold prediction before the season began that they would finish the year at a record of 500 or better, and what I've seen so far from them actually makes me feel pretty good about that bold prediction. Karel Vejmelka has been amazing. Clayton Keller continues to play like a superstar. Logan Cooley has been productive despite not scoring his first NHL goal yet. He's got 5 helpers through 6 games. In what is looking like a pretty weak Central Division this season, the Arizona Coyotes may be a lot closer to competing for a wildcard spot than most people thought heading into the season. My first impressions on the Boston Bruins are that I'm an absolute idiot. If you guys watched my season standings prediction video, I predicted the Boston Bruins to miss the playoffs. I had teams like the Ottawa Senators, the Buffalo Sabres finishing ahead of Boston, and here we are 2.5 or so weeks into the season, and the Boston Bruins have a perfect 6-0 record, picking right up where they left off last year's regular season, not the playoffs of course. Swayman and Ullmark continue to show everybody that they are one of, if not the best goaltending tandems in the league. Marchand, Pastrnak are obviously still superstars. James Van Riemsdyk has been a great signing. Although the Boston Bruins have had a very weak schedule to start the season, I think it's safe to say that this team is still very much so a contender. The Buffalo Sabres for me have been one of the most disappointing teams in the league thus far, a record of just 3-4. They are last place in the Atlantic Division, and of course this is relative to the expectations that I had for them coming into the season. I had really high hopes for the Sabres, and obviously just 7 games in, the season isn't a write-off, but the Atlantic Division is a bloodbath right now, so getting off to a slow start could be what make or breaks a team's season and what is the deciding factor on if they make the playoffs or not. If Buffalo wants to turn things around, obviously guys like Tage Thompson and Alex Tuch need to be better. They need to be more productive. Goaltending is obviously a massive question mark, as Devin Levi, who was the starter coming into the season, has really struggled. Thankfully, in the couple of games he started, Eric Comrie has looked pretty solid, so I would expect Comrie to get a lot more starts over these next couple of weeks. First impressions on the Calgary Flames are that this team may suck. The defense hasn't been good. The offense hasn't been good. The goaltending really hasn't been good, and obviously Markstrom coming off of a down year last season, the hope and expectation was that he would bounce back this year. That hasn't happened yet. Now luckily for the Flames, the rest of the Pacific Division has been pretty awful as well outside of the Kings, Canucks, and Golden Knights. So despite having a record of just 2-4-1, the Calgary Flames sit 4th place in the Pacific. The Carolina Hurricanes are up next, and who is this team? This does not look like the Carolina Hurricanes of seasons past. For a team that has kind of built an identity of having a great defense and great goaltending, they are currently allowing the most goals against per game in the entire NHL so far. Now the offense has looked pretty solid, so that's a plus, but the defense and especially the goaltending has not been good enough. It's obviously way too early to hit the panic button, especially for a team this talented, but it has certainly been a very rough start to the season for the Hurricanes. The next team up is the Chicago Blackhawks. They have Connor Bedard. If you're not a Hawks fan, that's really the only reason to watch this team, and honestly, even if you are a Blackhawks fan, that still may be the only reason to watch this team. It's going to be another year where the Blackhawks are in contention for the first overall draft pick. The Colorado Avalanche are up next. First impressions on them, they are an absolute wagon. They are one of 3 undefeated teams remaining in the NHL, along with the Boston Bruins and the Vegas Golden Knights. Alexander Georgiev has accounted for all 6 of the Avalanche wins to start the season, which I believe is a franchise record. He looks like an early season Vezina Trophy candidate. Rantanen is scoring at a 2-point per game pace. The depth has looked good. Guys like Logan O'Connor, Thomas Tatar, and Johansson have been really productive. Lots to like right now if you're an Avs fan. The Columbus Blue Jackets, pretty solid start to the season for them. 3-2-1 through 6 games. Adam Fantilli looks good. He scored a goal against the Ducks the other night, which had to feel really good for him as they passed on him with the second overall draft pick. The goaltending for Columbus has been serviceable so far, which was one of my biggest concerns for this team heading into the season, and they have this 3-2-1 record despite the fact that guys like Marchenko, Gaudreau, and Sillinger have yet to score goals. I think through 6 games, there's reason to be optimistic if you're a Blue Jackets fan. The Dallas Stars are one of those teams that have only played 5 games, but in those 5 games, they have looked fantastic. They've yet to lose in regulation, 4-0-1. Ottinger, another guy like Georgiev, looks like an early season Vezina Trophy candidate. He's 3-0-1 with a 952 save percentage. If you asked one of my buddies who drafted Jason Robertson very high in fantasy how Dallas' start to the season has went, you would probably think the sky is falling. He's not been happy with Robertson's early season production, but I think that just speaks to how good and how deep and well balanced this Dallas Stars team is. The fact that Robertson, only a measly 1 goal and 4 points through 5 games, and they still look this good. Next up, we have the Red Wings. It has been almost a perfect start to the season for Detroit. 5-1-1, second in the Atlantic through 7 games. Alex DeBrincat and Dylan Larkin are playing like bona fide superstars. They are atop the NHL scoring race right now. This is the best the Detroit Red Wings have looked in close to a decade. Again, I said this multiple times in this video. I'll probably say it a bunch more. It is still very early, but first impressions on the Red Wings are amazing. The Edmonton Oilers, easily one of the most disappointing teams in the league so far, a record of just 1-4-1 through 6 games. McDavid is obviously currently out with an injury. 1 to 2 weeks is the expected timeline there. Even when McDavid was in the lineup, this team just didn't look great. The depth just hasn't been there. The defense hasn't been good enough. The goaltending especially has been awful. It doesn't matter how many points the likes of Draisaitl, McDavid, and Bouchard put up. If you don't have those 3 things, you're not going to win very many games. It's been a concerning start to the season for Edmonton, definitely. Next up, we have the Florida Panthers. The defense has been surprisingly serviceable with the likes of Montour and Aaron Ekblad out of the lineup, with the exception of the penalty kill, which is dead last in the league right now, clicking at only about 65%. That needs to be better. I think if you're a Panthers fan, you'll honestly take a 3-3 record right now, considering the fact that Bob has a sub 900 save percentage and a goals against average north of 3, and Matthew Tkachuk has yet to find the back of the net. The Los Angeles Kings are up next. They've been a powerhouse offensively to start the season, second in the league only behind the Canes in goals for per game. Pretty much everybody in that top 9 is producing. The one concern that I had for the Los Angeles Kings coming into the season was the goaltending situation, and early on this season, that has been the weak point of this team. I kind of find it difficult to view this Kings team as a legit contender when your 1-2 punch in net is Cam Talbot and Phoenix Copley. The Minnesota Wild, another team, similar situation to the Kings. The offense has been fantastic through their first 6 games of the season, but defense and goaltending has been a weak point for sure. Goaltending especially, Philip Gustafsson, it's been a real reality check for him to start the season after he was borderline unbeatable last year. Not something I'd worry about yet, obviously, as Gustafsson has shown what he's capable of doing in the past, but if his numbers are similar to what they look like right now, a month, 2 months from now, then maybe it's time to panic a little. The Montreal Canadiens have been pretty decent to start the season, 3-2-1 through 6 games, and pretty much every team stat they're about average. Jake Allen has looked really good in the 3 starts he's gotten into, 2-0-1 with a 929 save percentage. Cole Caulfield looks great. Early returns on the Alex Newhook trade are good as he's been really productive so far. Obviously, the Kirby Dach injury sucks, but even without Kirby Dach in the lineup, I think this is still a team that should be relatively competitive on most nights. I'm not expecting the Canadiens to be, in contention for the first overall draft pick and be as bad as teams like Chicago and San Jose, which, depending on who you ask, may be a good or bad thing. First impressions on the Nashville Predators, despite the fact that they have just a 3-4 record, I actually feel like they've been playing pretty well. They've been controlling the expected goals battle at 5-on-5 in the majority of their games. I think it's safe to say that they probably deserve a little bit better of a fate and better of a record than they have right now. Now, obviously, expected goals don't win you games. Just because it's an expected goal, you still need to finish it, and this is a team that doesn't have a lot of high-level finishers. The defense and goaltending has been solid. That's something we've come to expect from the Nashville Predators. I think what their season is really going to come down to is, are they going to be able to score enough goals? The New Jersey Devils, offensively, they have been dynamite to start the season. They have the #1 ranked power play in the NHL. They have the NHL's leading scorer, 17 points points in 6 games for Jack Hughes, and I mean, like, what the hell even is that? He's definitely making me feel really good about my Hart Trophy pick in the preseason. The goaltending has been the biggest concern for the Devils so far. Neither Akira Schmidt or Vitek Vanacek have looked great, but this is a team with such a dynamic and dominant offense that even if they just get league average goaltending for the majority of the season, they should put themselves in a good position to finish in one of the top 3 spots in the division. Next up, we have the New York Islanders, who are losers of their last 3, 2-2-1 through 5 games. They've struggled to score goals. They've struggled to produce high quality chances, which is, something that we expect from the Islanders at this point. This is a team built around defense and goaltending, but early on this season, the defense and even the goaltending, Sorokin especially, have not been great, which has been a surprise. If Sorokin isn't giving this team Vezina caliber goaltending, then I really don't think they're a threat to do much of anything in the Metro. The New York Rangers, so far so good for them. They currently sit first place in the Metro, a record of 4-2, and that's with Shesterkin not really playing like we know Shesterkin can. This is a very well-balanced team heading into the season. I expected the New York Rangers to be one of those teams in the Metro competing for the 1 seed along with Carolina and New Jersey, and I haven't seen anything yet this season that makes me think otherwise. Next up, we have the Ottawa Senators, 3-3, 6th in the Atlantic through 6 games. The offense has been dynamite. Vladimir Tarasenko leads the team with 8 points in 6 games. He's looking like a great signing, and then you have guys like Sanderson, Stützle, Chychrun, Matthew Joseph, even Brady Tkachuk, all at or above a point per game. The Senators easily have one of the best forward crops in the league, and they've shown that so far. The thing holding them back so far is the goaltending, and that was my biggest concern for them coming into the season. I was very skeptical about the Korpisalo signing, and so far he hasn't looked the greatest. Neither has Anton Forsberg. The Philadelphia Flyers have been quite the surprise to start the season. They currently sit second place in the Metro at 3-2-1. I predicted that they would finish last place in the Metro this season, and I still think that's a real possibility. I mean, they started really well last season too. I think John Tortorella deserves a lot of credit for their start this season and last season. The training camp and preseason he puts these guys through, he gets them ready for the regular season. I really just don't think this roster has the kind of talent that you need to be a legit playoff contender, even with guys like Cam Atkinson and like Sean Couturier back in the lineup and performing well. Moving along now to the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's been a pretty concerning start to the season for them. They are losers of 3 straight. They have a record of 2-4 and currently sit in the basement of the Metro Division, and that's with guys like Malkin, Gensel, and Crosby all performing really well. This team really just has not gotten any depth scoring at all to start the season. Tristan Jarry has looked shaky. Erik Karlsson, the big offseason addition, has been up and down to start the season, but I feel like that's to be expected, adjusting to a new team, a new system, and everything like that. As he gets more comfortable in Pittsburgh, I expect his numbers to get better, the power play to get better as well with him as the quarterback. So I really wouldn't hit the panic button yet, but definitely not the start to the season Penguins fans were hoping for. First impressions on the San Jose Sharks. This team is absolutely atrocious. They are the only team in the league without a win, 0-5-1 through 6 games. Heading into the season, they were my pick to finish with the worst record in the league, the best odds at the first overall draft pick, and based on what I've seen so far, I feel very confident in that pick. The Seattle Kraken have had a very rough start to the season, 2-4-1 through their first 7 games. Grubauer has gotten back to being, the regular season Grubauer that we've seen in Seattle through his first couple seasons with the team. For the most part, the offense has not been there like it was last season where all 4 lines were producing. Now, the offense did explode for 5 goals in their most recent win over the Red Wings. Maybe that can get the team going, but it does look like this is a Kraken team that's poised to take a pretty sizable step back from the 100-point season they had last year. The St. Louis Blues have been pretty mid to start the season, and that's kind of what I expected them to be this year. Not towards the basement of the league, but also not a legit threat at a playoff spot either. They're 2-2-1 through 5 games. Offensively, not really a whole lot going on. Binnington has really carried them through this first stretch of the season. He's been unreal. He's rocking a .945 save percentage through 4 games. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that that's probably not sustainable based on what we've seen from Binnington the last couple of seasons. For the Tampa Bay Lightning, honestly, I would say so far so good. 3-2-2, 4th place in the Atlantic Division. I think really their goal to start the season is just to stay afloat while Andrei Vasilevsky is out, and they've been able to do that so far. Jonas Johansson has actually been giving them very serviceable goaltending, which I think is all you can ask ask for if you're a Bolts fan. First impressions on the Toronto Maple Leafs, not bad. They've had a solid start to the year, 4-2, third in the Atlantic. Obviously, Samsonov has been very disappointing, but Joseph Woll has picked up the slack. He's been great in the games he's gotten into and has made a case to steal that starting job from Samsonov early on this season. New additions like Max Domi and Tyler Bertuzzi have really yet to get going. Tyler Bertuzzi especially, I think the best is yet to come from him, which should only make this team better. Vancouver Canucks fans definitely have to be pretty happy with how their season has started. 4-2, second place in the Pacific. The goaltending has been great, which is really nice to see after the year Demko had last season, struggled with injury. Brock Besser is playing the best hockey we've seen him play in a very long time. JT Miller continues to thrive under Rick Tocchet, and the blue line, which was probably the biggest concern surrounding this team coming into the season, has been real solid so far. So far so good for Vancouver. The Vegas Golden Knights, the other one of those three teams that are still undefeated along with Colorado and Boston. Vegas is currently 7-0, first in the Pacific. This team has been playing dynamite. Not really much else to say other than that. They've basically been perfect through the first 2.5 weeks. If there was any team ever that had a really valid excuse to have a crazy Stanley Cup hangover, it would have been the Vegas Golden Knights, but that obviously hasn't happened. The Washington Capitals have had a very slow start to the season. They picked up a much needed win over a very good New Jersey Devils team last night. Hopefully that can get them going. Ovechkin now has a couple of goals. They definitely need guys like Backstrom, Oshie, and Wilson to get going and be a lot more productive if this team really wants to have a legit shot at doing anything in the Metro. And now finally finishing out the video with the Winnipeg Jets. I feel like you can't complain about a 3-3 record right now if you're a Jets fan, considering how Connor Hellebuck has looked to start the season. He has not been great at all in his 5 games. Aside from that, I feel like there's lots to like if you're a Jets fan. The offense has been solid. Dylan DeMello is playing probably the best hockey of his career. Alex Iafallo, who came over in the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade, has fit in beautifully. He's been a big time producer for them so far. This is a team that definitely should be in contention for a playoff spot towards the end of the season. So that is going to wrap up today's video. Those are my first impressions on all 32 NHL teams through the first 2.5 weeks or so of the regular season. If you guys enjoyed today's video and you want to see more one from every team videos like this, please be sure to drop a like. That is the best way to show your support. As always, I want to know what you guys are thinking, so let me know your thoughts on how your favorite team has done to start the season down below in the comments. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want NHL content just like this all year round, hit that subscribe button and I'll talk to you all soon.